Welcome to Two Guys on a Porch. One of us is a brain surgeon, the other's a rocket scientist. You figure out who's lying.
Or just a politician.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Two Guys on the Porch. I'm Jason, this is Bradford, and this is my girlfriend, Kimber.
Jason, today, thank you, by the way, and thank you all for joining us today on the porch. We're going to talk about the presidential election that just completed. Man, those are some deep waters in which we're swimming.
It's crazy times.
Yeah, it is crazy. A lot of controversy, and to help us along with that, we've got some high-proof whiskey today that'll help make that conversation a little smoother. Or not. It's going to light us up.
No, this is a great episode because to clarify for people who can't, or just listening to this episode, can't see this on video, I encourage you to watch this on video, Spotify, YouTube, wherever. Like and subscribe. But my girlfriend here is Kimber, and Kimber's my biggest fan. She looks longingly into my eyes, and she just loves me. My wife calls her my girlfriend. But this is a great episode because here we are, two friends on a porch. I got Kimber here with me. You've brought some great cigars, Padron 50-year cigars. I've never had this before. I love Padrones. Moreover, we're drinking some great bourbons today. Coy Hill from Jack Daniels and Willet. We've tried Willet before, but we paired these two together because Coy Hill is the highest proof bourbon that Jack Daniels makes, and Willet is known for being a high proof bourbon. So we have a great episode today. This is, and it's chilly in the air. It's fall. It's my favorite time of year.
So let me ask you, when you and we started our first couple episodes drinking a lot of Jack Daniels, a lot of different expressions they had, and kind of their wheelhouse is that 80 to 100 proof. Their bottled and bond is 100. Their Sinatra is 90. Their standard offering is 80. And we commented that, yeah, they don't really do much high proof. Did you even know Coy Hill existed at that time? Because I did not.
No, I did not.
So it was when we went to Nashville Whiskey House.
Yeah, shout out to Whiskey House. They're a great organization that raise money for charities. They will auction off taste at their location, and it's the Disneyland for bourbon lovers. I mean, they have everything. And that's where we discovered Coy Hill.
Yes. And we've been invited, by the way, to film an episode there.
Oh, dude.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Twist my arm.
Now, they did not volunteer for us to taste whiskey while we were there.
Oh, really?
That's a different story.
We got BYOB?
Maybe. Yeah,
no,
maybe.
Surely not. Shout out to Moss. I don't know. I don't think he'll make us bring our own.
Well, I talked to JB, who is the proprietor of that 503c charity
right.
corporation.
Moss is his master sergeant.
Yep, and Moss was at the event I most recently saw them, and I talked to JB afterwards and asked him if we could do that, and he said, would love to have you. And that was as far as it went. I didn't say, oh, we going to get to try some more Coy Hill?
Well, he may be just, placating us.
But that is interesting because I was not aware. Now, it's exceedingly rare on the open market right now to buy like last year's offering of Coy Hill. It's about $400 a bottle.
Yeah.
Now, what did you pay for this recent?
I honestly don't remember. It wasn't that much. It was, I think I'm going to guess about 300. And so my typical MO is when I travel, I will go into a small town liquor store and just look and see what they have. Because here in the South, this does not exist on the shelf. It just, it's a unicorn. It's not going to be there. So I was up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, not Michigan, Minnesota, doing a grouse hunt. We were grouse hunting up there. So shout out to Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
So if you paid $300 for this, it's $400 on, for last year's. You compare that to buying a single barrel or something of that nature, or full proof or whatever they may have. it's, I don't know, 50, 60 a bottle for that. So, Jack is not terribly expensive. We had Sinatra, which was 150.
Yeah.
By far the most expensive thing we've seen. So, yeah, this Coy Hill knocks it out of the park, both in terms of price and in terms of proof.
Yeah, indeed. So it is 128.9 proof. So that's people would consider that hot, but I think that's one thing we talked about in the last or a few episodes ago on Willet. Just because it's a high proof, if it's a quality bourbon, it's not necessarily hot. In actuality, it brings out a lot of flavor.
Yeah, and man, Willet, they do it so well. So and we've had Coy Hill. We've not had this particular one, but it, very similarly, it's just so full flavored and has so much character. Really, really good.
So Coy Hill is a particular location there in Lynchburg. It's a particular rick house that they somehow discovered really produces a great quality bourbon when it is a higher proof. So that's the name. It refers to the location of that particular rick house is Coy Hill.
Well, we've teased that a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the most recent election. My wife, and I agree with her, would say that the problem with politics in America is it's on television 24/7. And I think she's right. And so I don't really watch a lot of the news. As a result, I find I have more inner peace.
It gets annoying. At the end of the day, you're trying to get your work done, try to take care of your family, and some people are really into it. Like some people are into sports, some people are whatever. Some people are really into politics. It's better in moderation.
Well, I have an undergraduate degree in political science. I particularly enjoy the process. I enjoy the personalities. I like understanding what motivates people to do and think different ways. And so in that regard, I have the utmost respect for someone like former President Clinton. I think he is the best politician living in America. What he was able to do to get elected and then to get to a second term.
When you say get to do, you mean get away with, or
both? Yeah. Remarkable. And then, he didn't have 24-hour news cycles with social media. Who knows what would have come of that? But that certainly has changed the dynamic. But regardless of what has happened in this most recent election or 4 years before or what will happen 4 years from now, the phrase that you will hear consistently is, this is the most important election of your lifetime.
Every election's that way.
Exactly.
It's the sky is falling and people getting tired of it. And I think that's part of the problem with the legacy media channels and even the others. Everything is just doom and gloom. It's, if this happens, blood will fall from the sky and the world's going to end. And so people get tired of crying wolf, essentially. It just gets old.
Yeah, one hope that I have through this and, through this most recent process is the ability to interact civilly with those whom you have differing political opinions. I think Trump makes it easy in the regard that we can all agree, or most can agree, he's not a very nice person.
Yeah, no. I mean, so going back to Clinton, if the old adage, who would you like to have a beer with? I think Clinton would be a pretty good guy to sit down and have
100%.
Yeah. Trump, he's just going to talk about himself the entire time and how great everything is, how great I am, how great this is, and how wonderful my house is, and have you seen the toilet on my plane? It's the best toilet ever. I mean, it's just whatever.
And I've actually thought about this because every president since, I think Rutherford Hayes is credited with the first official presidential library, but they all receive funding for that and have for some number of years now, starting in the middle 20th century. And his would presumably be Mar-a-Lago. And do you want to go there? Like, it'll be a club, but I mean, it's his personal residence. He'll be, dead and gone in the not too distant future. He is almost 80 years old. So, I mean, is that going to be the tourist spot that others are when, you want to seek out a presidential library and museum to go to? And I don't know.
So I went to undergrad at Emory University. Jimmy Carter at the time was a fixture on campus. His presidential library is not too far away in Atlanta.
Right.
And each one gains momentum. It's just the modern day memorial to that president. It's, the pharaohs had pyramids. Our presidents have presidential libraries. It's almost as if, and I don't know this to be true, but it's almost as if this is how you can garner access to somebody who's important, is you donate to their political library. It's okay to do that, and you gain access to the president. To me, I would like the guys just to a candidate to swear off after I'm elected or after I finish my presidency. I'm not going to write a book. I'm not going to, or if I write a book, I'm not going to profit from that book. I'm not going to go on a media tour and make $1 million a speech. President Obama did that. I mean, all have done that. I'd like them to swear off to say, hey, I'm going to take my retirement and go home.
Well, there was no retirement prior to Harry Truman. And he was almost destitute when he retired from the White House. And so that was one of the reasons that they implemented a presidential pension. And then Gerald Ford was the one who figured out, they'll pay me to come speak at places. And he capitalized in a very literal way in that regard, and really gave permission for presidents subsequent to him to continue to do that. And so, yeah, they signed these massive book deals. They seem to leave that White House with more money than when they went in.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, go figure. Changing the subject for a second. This is what you got to love about sitting on the porch. About 150 yards away in that direction, there's a doe just walking up here. It's just sitting there. It's got to love it. Being in the South, you're hanging out in the porch.
This is a beautiful piece of property too, so that helps with that regard.
Yeah, God has touched this piece of property. It's a beautiful place.
So the venue of our viewers, and I know many of you are listening and don't see, but yeah, we're literally sitting on a porch, and the vantage point you have is seeing us on that porch. The vantage we have is looking out on this beautiful property. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. We're going to see some of the beautiful nature that exists here. I want to make sure that as we go through this political process, that if there is an opportunity to be civil toward one another in the midst of disagreement, we're able to do that. I have close friends and family members who voted differently than I did, and that's okay. I don't think it has to be the end of the world. I think there was conversations recently about, I'm not going to Thanksgiving if they voted one way or another. Like, really?
Yeah, or akin to that is if this person gets elected, I'm leaving the U.S. It's
and I think there was an actress who actually did that recently, but she had homes in 2 different countries, so
it makes it easy. Yeah,
I think that's a dangerous standard.
I totally agree. I think we could talk about this better if we had bourbon in our hands.
Yeah,
I can't wait to get into this. So let's start off with the Coy Hill.
Let's do it. So just comparing color notes, these are both really strong, dark amber colors, usually lower proof because it has more water. It literally has watered down the color and not flavor, but the proof, but the color is impacted, obviously, when you add water. So this really reflects the wood that is, infused into this whiskey.
Well, I think also the temperature of the rick houses that, it's in Tennessee, it'll get pretty hot in the summers here, cold in the winters. It's chilly out in the porch today. And so that makes the bourbon, the mash, move in and out of the surface of the inner surface of the barrel.
Yeah.
And so that adds to the color as well as how long they age it in the barrel.
Yeah. So this is close to 130 proof. And on the nose, you know, I talked before about it, burn the hair off, you know, if you're not careful. And this doesn't do that at all.
Not at all.
That's a
It's
very
mild.
pleasant nose. Yeah.
Very mild.
So as we take a sip, that's your first one of this. I'm curious as to your thoughts. That requires you talking about it.
Yes, I'm contemplating. I'm cogitating deeply about it. One, first is the absence of the burn, like we were speaking of before. This is not, wow, this goes down hard. It's just the opposite. It has a mild nose, but instantly it's hit with flavor. A lot of oak in it. I taste a lot of oak in it. Not as much vanilla or caramel. To me, Jack Daniel's always has a lot of caramel to it.
And see, I did detect that. I agree with you on the oak, but I think it's still very much Jack Daniel's. I mean, it's a signature of Jack. The charcoal filter, I mean,
I taste it, yeah.
It's still there. Man, to your point, God, it's so hard to find a high proof that tastes so good. They've really hit the mark here. This is phenomenal.
Maybe I'm crazy. I taste a little bit of apple in there.
I'll have to trust you on that.
Yeah, I may be going out on a limb,
My palate's
but
not nearly as discernible.
It's a little bit of a, it's a little bit more of a fresh, crisper taste.
Yeah, let's talk about these cigars. You mentioned it at the beginning of the episode. So this is the Padrón 50th anniversary, and it was released in 2014 to celebrate the founding of that company outside of Cuba in Nicaragua in 1964. When this cigar was initially released, you had to buy the entire box.
That's an investment.
And if you did that, you got to replenish the box upon the release the next year. The problem was it really limited the ability for people to find this cigar. They have loosened the regulation. I don't know that they've increased production much. I mean, it's a high-quality tobacco. It's aged a minimum of 10 years. But I went into a shop, and I'm going to give a shout-out to Mission Cigar down in Spring Hill, Tennessee. I met a couple of the owners, Monty Collins, his brother Mark. There are two other guys, and they are appropriately named because upon their founding of that cigar shop, they had a mission. They wanted to connect guys together over a cigar, and they do a fantastic job of that. Padrón is their #1 seller, and so they had an opportunity to be allocated one of these 1,000 boxes that are distributed throughout the U.S. They're not plentiful.
Well, and
you pay for them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. This is not something you just walk down and throw a 10 spot down and get one. This is an expensive stick.
Yeah. This is $50.
Yeah.
I almost choked when I said that.
Yeah. Well, don't drop it.
But it may be the best cigar I've ever had.
It's pretty darn good. I agree with that. I'm not the cigar connoisseur that you are, but this is just nice. It's just a pleasant smoke. It's not up front. It's not brusque. It's smooth.
Yeah, it's a medium-bodied cigar, so you tend to get something a little stronger, and it is that. But man, there's nothing like I could smoke this all afternoon and be just as content and happy as I could be. I've only paid more for a cigar one time, and that was an Opus X, but it was a much bigger cigar. Like you were literally buying more tobacco than this. But I think in terms of, price per ounce kind of a thing, they're probably equal. But yeah, this may be the best thing I've ever smoked. This is phenomenal.
So Padrones have always been my favorite, 1964s, and this is, you can argue with the juice is worth the squeeze, but this is definitely a better cigar.
Yeah, and to put it in context, you can get a Padrón for, I don't know, $18, $20.
Yeah, $20.
Most of what they have is in the 25 to 35 range. This is probably that next step up. And then what we hope to have on a future episode is very special release, a partnership that's the Legend. I think it's Legend or Legendary. Got to do a little more homework on their the cigar in which Fuente and Padron have partnered to celebrate each other. And those cigars are certainly much more rare than these, and they're a little more expensive.
Yeah, they are about a factor of 4. So to that point, you don't want to miss that episode. So be sure to like and subscribe. Two Guys on a Porch. You don't want to miss that episode. Go to our website, check out hats, T-shirts, and be sure to join us here on the porch.
Yeah, thank you. As you know, we look back on this election. You know, we haven't talked a bit about policy, but if you look at past elections, you look at this most recent election, the policy is almost squelched, regardless of what it is, by the realities of economics or the perceived economics that exist. When you're paying more for groceries, and I don't care who you are, when you're paying more for groceries, you think something's wrong. And that's effectively what I think this election boiled down to.
Well, I agree. I think when it comes down to it, people would rather not have government. It's a necessary evil. You recognize that you need somebody minding the store, the big overall picture. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of people, they don't interact with government. There's exceptions, and we need government for defense, a safety net for people. People out there need help. No doubt we need that. But as you drive to work every day, you're not thinking about government. Now, we need the government to build a highway.
They built the highway
so,
on which you're driving. Yeah,
exactly. But it's not your everyday thing. It's in the background. I think people would rather the government be a referee than a player in the game. And what we see more nowadays is with the 24-hour news cycle, it's more pushing into our everyday focus. And whether we want it or not, there's politics. We watch the football game and there's politics in there, or whatever, a sports event, and some sports figure is promoting their views, and people want to escape politics.
Right.
They're looking to sports or some other venue to escape from that world of politics or the reality of life, in that matter.
Yeah, I made a bet with somebody before this election that Trump would win and would win the popular vote. So he became the second president to ever be elected to non-consecutive terms, Grover Cleveland being the 22nd and 24th president. So Trump will be the 45th and 47th president. But it did it in a similar way. Cleveland had the same experience with losing 2 popular votes, winning 1, and only when he won a popular vote or lost popular vote, he lost the election. So Trump, he did the same thing. So I think, much to people's surprise, he won the popular vote, and I think it boiled down to economics. There was a little bit lower percentage turnout, but the second highest turnout since 1900. Yeah, 2020 was the highest we'd had since then.
Trump got 76 million votes. That's I think that's the most a Republican's ever garnered.
It is. It's the second most votes anyone's received. Biden received over 81 million. There was a huge anti-Trump vote that brought out voters in general and against Trump in 2020. And I think after the final tally, Harris will have the third most votes in history, exceeding Trump's 2020 tally just by a little bit. So, but that speaks to the fact there was turnout. But, you know, in some of the cases, I think without exception, and I have not looked at the final numbers, there was not one single state from a percentage standpoint where Trump did not overperform last time, and Harris, the Democratic candidate, underperformed Biden. And in a handful of places, I looked at like Mississippi, Trump received virtually the same number of votes he received last time, and Harris received 100,000 less. So there was less excitement. There was also maybe some resignation that, yeah, she's not going to win Mississippi regardless. And yeah, he wins that by 60+%. Same in Alabama. Tennessee, not dissimilar. There were more Trump votes and fewer Harris votes. So there was a wider swing. You saw that in a handful of states. But even in the heavy Democratic states, those blue states, New York State, California, Oregon, Washington, there was a wider margin of votes received by Trump than there had been in the last election.
Well, as much as we have quote unquote advanced, it comes down to basic principles of voter turnout. Who motivates their team the most? And I think people were, at the end of the day, I think people were a little turned off by Biden, pulling out at the last moment, and Kamala Harris coming in somewhat of a non-elected position. She didn't go through the primary. Maybe she could have benefited from going through a primary process. But, it was, the detractors will say it was a coronation. The fans will say Biden was noble to withdraw. But I think that's part of the irritation with people, is that people could see Biden struggling like you see your own father struggling. And they say, oh, no, he's fine. And it's like, no, that's what my dad does, and that's not good.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I'm glad you brought up that point. But to finish our election, let's taste this Willet.
Yeah,
and that way we choose between two really good candidates.
So I'm a Willet fan. As we had our previous episode, it's one of my favorites to get a hold of. It's hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, and this is colloquially referred to as the Purple Top.
Yes. And this is aged for 9 years in barrels. It is 142.4. Don't forget the 0.4. So it's a higher proof than Coy Hill. And in the previous episode, I really liked this. I've already dived into it as you were pontificating on the election. I like the Coy Hill better.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just tasted it while you were
you don't
bantering on.
But yeah, the Willet is good, but Coy Hill I think beats it.
I do. Yeah, I almost am reluctant to say that. I'm apologetically saying
that. Exactly, because Willet is kind of a holy trinity, right?
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I think Coy Hill has a beaten.
And listen, we're not saying anything about Willet in a negative way. It's unbelievable whiskey.
Yeah.
But that just tells you how good this Coy Hill is.
Yeah, so to use the horse racing analogy between Kentucky and Tennessee, I think Coy Hill beats it by a nose.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. Yeah, and we are comparing Tennessee whiskey to bourbon, but not really. It's proof to proof kind of a thing, high-end whiskeys.
So we picked this out because, we wanted to taste a couple of high-proof bourbons, neither of which lives up to the reputation of a high proof burns as it goes down.
Right.
They're both very smooth, very full of flavor, but I think the Coy Hill has a beaten.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do want to get back to, and by the way, this cigar continues to smoke amazingly. Yeah, I love this, and paired with these whiskeys, it's really unbelievable.
This might be my favorite episode as far as combination of smoke and drink.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We could talk for, another hour or two. People would not want to listen to that, but
no. We may the recording may stop and we just keep on
just
enjoying it.
Right.
Yeah, y'all keep on going, whatever.
Have another pour. But you brought up a really interesting point about Biden dropping out or not dropping out. He made the comments in 2020 that he was going to serve as a bridge. And I think whether he meant that or it was taken to mean because of his age, and it was almost a celebration of his many years in politics. I think he had been a U.S. Senator since 1962, or excuse me, 72, that he was going to step aside for a younger candidate, maybe Harris, but at least to have the ability for those candidates to go through the primary process, and he didn't. Maybe if I'm president, I wouldn't want to relinquish that either. maybe he really did feel like, because he had beat Trump, that regardless of his mental or physical state, and there's probably not a lot of self-awareness about that, that he felt like he had the best chance to beat Trump. And a right-minded Biden may have.
So I personally would blame Biden's inner circle.
I agree with that.
And I'm not sure who that inner circle is.
Me either.
But somebody should have had a hard talk with him and say, Joe, you're just not as sharp as you used to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem with politics. And then was the problem with, we are for our team no matter what. And this is both Republicans and Democrats are guilty of this, is that, Biden could have been caught with a prostitute. Trump may have been caught with a prostitute. And the people would still vote for him. I mean, they just, it's for our team no matter what. And the problem with nowadays is the media is hooked into that. They're on one team or the other. What happened to the Walter Cronkite's of the world who just called it, just give me the facts and called it straight? It's now everybody has a bias, and it's not necessarily what they say is what they don't say. You've got to go to different media sources to hear different things. You don't hear certain stories about one candidate or the other because you listen to one channel and they just conveniently don't mention this or mention that. And it's both sides are guilty. It's like the movie Unforgiven. There are no innocents here. Both sides just don't mention their shortcomings.
They're no good guys.
They're no good guys.
Well, and Nancy Pelosi, and I think unfairly, has just been raked over the coals for her comments about Biden not stepping out sooner. And I think it was taken as this insult to Harris, but it begs the question, would she have survived a primary season? And if her 2019, foray into the presidential election was any indication, she would not have. There would have been other candidates who would have emerged better prepared or what have you, with a better message, better received, whatever the case. Who knows, she might have, but the chance was never given. And to your point, the inner circle should have stepped up and said, man, it's probably not the time for you to run. Your time has passed, and let's pass it off. And because he didn't do that, and maybe that inner circle had tried and failed, and they knew that it was going to take a poor debate performance to rouse the entire party to say, you have to move aside. I don't know.
Well, you can't.
We've never seen anything like that.
Oh, it's crazy. You can't put lipstick on a pig. And I think that was the problem with, in this case, the Democrats, but Republicans have done this before as well, is that people get tired of, you telling me that water's not wet. You get tired of the bullshit of that. This is not what I'm seeing. It's obvious what I'm seeing.
Right.
And people lack trust. You lose their trust when you almost become delusional when you say, this guy is sharp, this guy's with it. It causes you to question other things. So I think it goes back to the voter turnout. I think people were less motivated to turn out because even the diehard Democrat was not doubted some of the things that Biden or Harris would say, and so they're not excited about that. President Obama, people were excited about it. It's hope and change. It was a new era, and in the same way, I think Trump did that for Republicans. Is we don't like the system as it's running. We like our system, we like our country, but it's not running the way we want it to be. So let's throw a wrench in the works and see what we can come out with. And I think Trump is the Obama version for the Republicans. I think he is the hope and change for the Republicans. They, certainly Trump has his shortcomings, but he was at least calling the kettle black. This is wrong. This is right. You may disagree with him. You may agree with him, but at least he was straightforward. You know what you're getting.
He certainly turned politics on its ear just with his approach. People are equated what Biden did with Johnson stepping aside in 68, but it's not even close because there was a primary in 68. Johnson knew he wasn't going to win. He stepped aside. You had Robert Kennedy, who was very likely going to win the Democratic nomination, but in maybe the most tumultuous year in American politics or in American history to that degree, you had Martin Luther King killed, and then you had Robert F. Kennedy assassinated. And so it ends up going to Hubert Humphrey, who was Johnson's vice president, and he wins a pretty close race to Richard Nixon, who, 6 years prior had said in his U.S. Senate loss in California, you're not going to have Nixon to kick around. Now, people were saying, oh, this was illegal with what Biden did. Look, the Democratic Party, each of the parties, make the rules for how their delegates are assigned. And so it could have gone to the convention. But I think because Biden anointed Harris as she's the nominee, they didn't really buck that. Out of respect, or she was going to have momentum, I don't know. But the party could have taken that to the convention and had open floor votes, which would have been much like it would have happened, 150 years ago or so.
Yeah, when conventions were really conventions, where people, before the days of multimedia and TV, where people hashed out their
smoke-filled room smoking cigars.
That's right. You hash out the views. But yeah, I think with all due respect to Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, she would have benefited from the training of a primary.
100%, yeah. And I think, as we wrap this up, I think the country's going to be okay. In 4 years, we're going to have another presidential election. And based on what's happened the previous 4 years, based on what those candidates promote in 4 years from now, we'll go through this process again. And it'll be the most important election of our lifetime.
Yeah. that is one, like taxes and death. You
That's
can be
right.
assured of that.
Right.
But I think that's the neat, special, whatever you want to call it, about the American system. There's checks and balances. There's been some pretty horrible presidents. I'm a fan of Jimmy Carter, but he didn't do much. And
good man, not a good president.
Yeah, but we got through that. And I think even though you might have somebody whose president's not that great, the checks and balances are such in our system that we're going to be okay.
Yes, 100%. Well, guys, you guys are going to be okay too. You're going to be better if you spend time with us on the porch. Two guys on a porch.
Absolutely. These are great cigars. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is my most enjoyable episode from. I always enjoy smoking cigar, drinking bourbons with you, but this cigar is right up there. The bourbons are great. I love this Coy Hill.
Me too.
This is my favorite podcast, just simply because of what we're drinking and smoking. This is awesome.
Yeah, I hope our listeners can find these and enjoy them as well.
So comments, please go out and try some bourbons. Let us know what you think. Give us suggestions. Write in, comment. Be sure to like and subscribe because we want to keep on doing this. This is fun for us to hang out in the porch. Join us, Two Guys on a Porch.
Life is much better with friends, a drink, and cigar, and some two guys on a porch swag.
Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at twoguysonaporch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag